Thank you, everyone, for coming by inverting the negative neutron flux to the Technobabble panel.
Right, you just took one of my rants that I was going to go on. That's okay, fine.
We have to start it like that.
Yes, yes. So are you moderating again?
I don't know, am I?
Stephen, is this your panel? I don't think it's written down who's it, but
I
I
nominate Steve.
Okay.
Okay.
Rock, paper, scissors.
I'll let Eric.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Rock, paper,
Eric.
scissors.
Guys, happy to let it go.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is the afternoon in this time zone now, presumably. Welcome to the Technobabble panel, or When Technobabble Goes Wrong is the official title. But maybe at some point I'm going to be contrarian and ask if Technobabble ever goes right. So let's have some fun with this. So I'm Eric Choi. Apparently I'm the moderator now. I have been known to Technobabble in my writing. I have a number of pieces of short fiction. I co-edited 2 anthologies, The Dragon and Stars with Derwin Mack, and the Hard SF anthology called by Tim Pence with Ben Bova. I actually try to minimize the Technobabble. Get the panel to introduce themselves. So Stephen?
Well, I am Stephen B. Pearl, and I've written everything from post-apocalyptic medical political thrillers through to Norse fantasy Viking adventures.
Is there Norse Technobabble?
Yes, there is Norse Technobabble.
Sorry.
Actually, when you start throwing around terms like even yardarm, mainmast, scuppers, kinkerbilt, this can be Technobabble. It's just Technobabble for a less advanced technology.
Anachronistic.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
Jillian?
I'm Jillian Clinton. I used to be an aerospace engineer until I either got the Technobabble wrong or I'm not quite sure what happened. And then I became an information researcher, which I've been doing for the last 24 years of that I'm counting. And I'm a reader, not a writer, but I have read enough stuff to know when I really run across Technobabble that makes me crazy. So I have rants in the future to tell you.
My name is Andrew Barton. I'm a hard science fiction writer. A lot of my stuff has appeared in analog. And I try to minimize the use of Technobabble for reasons that I would like to go over in this panel.
So maybe we'll start with the basics, because it just occurs to me that we've actually not defined what Technobabble is. I think we all seem to know it when we read it or when we see it. So why don't we start there? How would you define Technobabble?
I would say, like, going off of Stephen's mention of Viking Technobabble, like I just want to go off of that, I would say, to my mind at least, Technobabble is basically when you are trying to baffle your audience with bull. Like, basically waving your hand and saying, this is scientific, just accept it.
Yeah.
When it's because, I don't know if I'm going to be going over anything anyone else had planned to talk about, but everyone, basic grounds of Technobabble is Star Trek.
Yes.
There's Star Trek The Next Generation. To the extent that Star Trek The Next Generation, when the scripts were being written, had tech in the script, that a technical advisor would go back and fill in. So Technobabble is something that doesn't mean anything to the story, that does not add anything to the story, that is just greebles to make it look like it's scientific.
Do you agree with that, Stephen, that there's no meaning to the story?
I think Technobabble actually does add to the story if it's done well, because it adds to the logic of the story. But that's Technobabble that is actually grounded in some form of reality. It may be really theoretical. You know, we have triggered the supernova in the star that has ripped a hole in time-space, creating the point-to-point wormhole transfer. Okay, way out there. But current physics is actually postulated it might be possible to do that. It's way beyond us now. So I think Technobabble gives a rationale and a framework where you need it for the story to go. Where it falls down is when you're just going, wah, 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 and there's no logic to the association. of words.
I think what irritates me to some extent is, as you say, when it's not necessary. If somebody had bothered to do a modicum of research, they could have in fact used the real terminology.
Yes.
So there was an example, it was that Darmok episode of Next Gen. So, the scattering field is now in the lower D region of the atmosphere. Well, there are perfectly good scientific names for the various regions. It could have been extended down to the mesosphere or something, and that would have worked perfectly well rather than throwing in a nonsensical term. Now, Jillian, as always, has done stupendous research on this topic. I'm going to invite her now to elucidate, please.
Actually, this research was really easy because I just had to think about the things that make me crazy when I'm watching or a program or reading a book. And of course, unfortunately, partly because I read a lot and watch a lot of Star Trek, I have a number of the Technobabble Gone Wrong rants about Star Trek. So I read almost all of the mass market books that have come out. And there was one of the Voyager books called The Black Shore, which came out quite some years ago. And I absolutely don't remember anything about the rest of the story at all. But what happened was, and I don't know whether this was the writer or a possible editor, but they seemed to, somebody may have written something in using feet and inches, and then somebody wanted to be clever or international or something and shoved meters in instead, not understanding the real relationship between feet and meters. And you ended up with an 8-meter alien on the bridge of Voyager. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, oh.
That would never happen in real life.
Maybe it was kneeling over.
Really, I don't think so. So he was supposed to be very threatening, but I just thought he would have had a huge headache. And that took me so far out of the story that I don't remember anything else about the story.
There are a couple things I want to say, following up on, again, on what Stephen said. I think that there should be a distinction between technobabble and jargon, because there is a reason for jargon, because sure, it can seem like impenetrable to someone who's unfamiliar with it, but it's terms that have very specific meaning to people who understand them, like the term in orbital mechanics, like the first one that comes to mind is like argument of periapsis, which sounds really weird and not something you can really figure out just by looking at the words, but it's something that has a specific meaning that has that sort of thing, whereas technobabble doesn't have a specific meaning. And one of the things that really irritates me, it also goes back to Star Trek, because when you're doing something for entertainment, the main thing above all others is don't waste my time. And that's what Technobabble does, because there's one scene that really sticks in my mind because of how much it annoys me. There's one Deep Space Nine episode where the Federation is attacking the Jump Star fleet on the way to get to DS9. And it's this huge battle, like sparks flying, ships going left and right, and communications goes down, and O'Brien runs to his station, and I just remember this because it's so irritating. They're jamming our communications by generating a rotating EM pulse. I don't care how they're doing it. It doesn't matter. Just say they're broken. Technobabble wastes time in the script to make it look nice.
Can I ask you? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, and then I have a
Yeah,
follow-up
I
to
just-
Andrew's
Where do you draw the line? Like, for example, Tom Clancy's books are full of descriptions of real technology, but to the point of I don't care what kind of plastic the gun stock is made of. Is that technobabble, or is that just?
I would personally argue, this is my own personal definition, but if it's something you could go to a source, an industry-related source, and look up and discover what it actually means, it's jargon.
Okay.
If it's just something that the writer made up, it's technobabble.
I see.
Now,
Okay.
this is an interesting distinction you've made, because if I were to be a defender of technobabble, which I will because I want to be contrarian on this panel, is I would argue that in science fiction works, we are in a fantastic milieu or a future society where the technobabble is the jargon. because we are in a world with faster light travel or materials that there's technologies beyond what we have today, and this is merely the language that people would use in that time to describe that. So how
I
would the...
would actually agree with that to a point, and there are two things to do with that. One is where it jars you out of it, like with the meters and feet obviously mixed up, or if you're coming across something that's been used to set an atmosphere, that's acceptable technobabble to me. But if it doesn't work, or you haven't researched it carefully, or you've been very careless or lazy about how or what you've said, then it becomes annoying and it takes you out of the story, then it's not an effective use of technobabble. And the other thing I would do is, it's not just the words, or putting in concepts, or whether they're made up or real, or whether they're appropriate or not. It's also actions and okay, but I really, really don't like the new Star Trek reboots. And the first movie...
I couldn't tell.
No, he's never heard these before. So this is not words, but it is sort of actions and part of the visual effects and stuff. Sulu goes orbital skydiving with a sword that is color coordinated with his outfit. I mean, really? You know, it's all this high-tech stuff, and you're doing all this stuff, and you've got a sword? And it just sort of, to me, that's sort of a visual technobabble. And it really is annoying and frustrating.
I'm glad you brought that up, because visual technobabble is so common. You look at those J.J. Abrams reboots. You have a starship with water pipes that a man can be sucked down. I mean, you have this factory floor with all the equipment spread all over the place.
And what about running around, because apparently the communicators don't work? You know, there's no communication system, but you've got to run around at speed all over the place, talk to people?
I think it's going back to the 60s, the Enterprise has never had a wireless network.
True enough, but in the 1961s, you can excuse it because it was reflective of the technology that they understood. In the later ones, of course, in space, there may be reasons for not, there may be reasons for not having a wireless network because EM radiation could possibly disrupt things, so hardwired might be the safer way to go.
Well, Battlestar Galactica.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Was there a comment?